start fresh. Neistin Karfeif Lier de Reb Meir. You were talking about leaving your location on Shabbos or on Yom Tov. How far are you allowed to walk outside of a city? So we said 2,000 amas. Reb Meir says that there's automatically an extension to the city of 70 amas. Means you start your calculation 70 amas out. Why? Because there's a karfif, there's like a park area that goes around the city, which is considered part of the city, an open area. Chachamim say, no. Start counting from the edge of the city. You don't get 70 amas. You hearing me?
There's a reverberation. Are other people hearing it?
Marisha, it's okay, the sound? Yeah, it's good. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So what's the Chachamim's opinion? The Chachamim's opinion is that you do get 70 amas for the city, but not automatically. If it's between two cities, so then when we want to join two cities together, so if the cities are distant from each other with the Karfif area, which is 70 amas, so then we can extend both cities, which is very interesting, because the Tchum, how far I'm allowed to walk, the 2,000 amas, won't start from the edge of my city. It will start from the twin city. That's right next. It will start from the edge of that city, which gives me a whole city that I can walk besides for the 2,000. That's the Chacham's opinion. Now we'll see, Machlekes, if the area between the twin cities is 70 amas of Karfif, or if it's 140 amas too. That's a Machlekes that we'll see shortly. Any better? Enough time? Let me just do one thing here. Okay. Can you hear me?
That did help. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so okay, now we have a quote in the Mishnah. We're going to see it's not so clear who's saying this, but the pashtus is you read it, it's the Chachamim that's saying it. What do the Chachamim say? If this city has 70 amas and this city has 70 amas, so then the karfef makes them into one city. If you have three cities that are tripled, we'll see what that means in the Gemara. The two outer ones have 141 and a third. See, each city gets 70 and 2/3 of an amma. 70 and 2/3. When you double that, you get 141 and 1/3. So then the middle city gives the two outer ones, makes the two outer ones into one. Now we're going to have to see how this works. Wait for the Gemara to get the end of this Mishnah, get clarity on that. Okay, just in short, we had a machlekes from Meir and the Chachamim, if there's an automatic extension of 70 amas, or if the 70 amas, which is called Karfif, the park area outside the city, is only there to join two cities together, but it doesn't go automatically to any city. Minahani Mili. Where do we know this? Amar Rava rather. Rava says, Amar Kra Mikiria V'chutza. It says from the edge of the city and outside, talking about the cities of the Levium, that you have to give the migrash. It says, Amar Teretin Chutza Bachakach Medai. Give something outside the city, which means make an open area outside the city, and then you start to measure. Okay. So that means that we learn from a pasuk regarding the cities of Levium that tells us that every city gets a certain amount of area outside the city. Chum say you don't say this. Itmar, statement of Amirayim. We have a machlekes here between Amirayim, how to learn the words of the sages. Rav Huna says that when you have two cities, twin cities, each one gets its own 70 amas. And so therefore the area between the two cities to be able to make them one, that the distance would be 141 amas. And a third. Chia Barav Amar Karfev Echad L'Shteim. Chia Barav says he only gets 70 amas. That's it, between the two cities. Tanan, let's take a look at the Mishnah to see if we have any proof. The Chum say that there's only a karfif. They only said karfif between two cities. Look at what it says. It says there's a one karfif between two cities. Karfif elabin bezayaris. Now the emphasis was a little different the way we read it. Our emphasis was in contrast to Reb Meir that says you always say karfif. And the Chum say no, you only say it between two cities. But what they're taking here out of this is there's only one karfif. Karfif elabin doesn't say karfifim or something. Tiyufta de Rav Huna to kashan Rav Huna. Rav Huna says you get more than one karfif, you get two. Amlach Rav Huna explains my karfif, teres karfif. Karfif doesn't mean one karfif. It means the laws of karfif. Teres means the laws of. But really it's a karfif to each one. Really you get the laws of a karfif, the concept of a karfif is between two cities. How many karfifim are there? There's actually two. It also makes sense. If you look further in the Mishnah, line 3 in the Mishnah, it says, it says, if this one has 70 amas and this one has 70 amas, so you make a karfif for them to become one city. Shema Mina, you see that used to karfif. I mean, read it in the Mishnah. What in the world is Chia Barav saying? You read the Mishnah and it says that each city gets a karfif. How does he read that? It's Tiyufta de Chia Barav. Leimatevi to Chia Barav. Is this not a kasha on Chia Barav? Amla Chia Barav. Chia Barav says, Amani Reb Meir. That's the opinion of Reb Meir. Reb Meir always said you get a karfif. So he says he give this cities karfif. This city gets a karfif. That city gets a karfif. If you want to join two cities together, Reb Meir also discusses the two cities. I mean, we didn't see it in the Mishnah because it wasn't necessary. At least the way we read it the first time. Now we're seeing it in the Mishnah that Reb Meir is also saying that two cities get two karfifim. And the Chum say two cities only get one. This is the way Chia Barav reads the Mishnah. Gemara says, 1 second. Reb Meir, Tani L'Reisha. Reb Meir says every city gets a karfif anyway. Listen, karfif L'Yer. Different Reb Meir. Why does he have to repeat himself again after the Chachamim say that no, they don't? Reb Meir comes back and says, yes, they do. I mean, you said it already the first time that a city gets a karfif. So the Gemara says, Shricha. Now, we're looking at two cases here. The first case of the Mishnah is that every city automatically gets a karfif. That's the words of Reb Meir. And the Chachamim say, no, they don't. This is the Chia Barav's reading of the Mishnah. Comes along Reb Meir, and then says, if you have two cities, then you... 1 second, let me go back. Just for clarity, the Reb Meir starts the Mishnah saying every city automatically gets an extension, a karfif, 70 amas. Some say no, it doesn't, only if it's between two cities. Comes along Reb Meir and says, between two cities, each one gets a karfif. This is how Chia Barav wants to do the Mishnah. Question is that Reb Meir already said that if each city gets a karfiv, automatically, then between two cities you have two. And that's sort of understood. We don't need the Reb Meir to repeat that. So the Gemara says, Stricha. No, it's necessary for him to repeat it. If it would only be from the Reisha, then I could have thought that maybe between two cities you also only get one. Kamashmalan deletarti trey yavinamai. Kamashmalan that you give two for two cities. Doesn't explain what the Havamina is. Biyashmin and Hacha. If we would just say the Seifa, that two cities, each one gets a karfiv, wouldn't that tell me that one city gets one? It says no. Mishum didchika tashmishtayim. That's because, look, it's very tight. Two cities, there's no area around them. We give two cities, we give them each, because it's a tight area. So around the cities, they should have some grazing area, just a park area. But with Stam, a regular city, there's nothing around it. So does it really need a karfiv? I mean, look, you're walking 2,000 amos out of a city, and there's nothing there. And there's no houses, there's nothing. You have to start at 70 amos out, there's nothing there. You start it right out of the city, and then you get 2,000 amos. So if it wouldn't have told me that a regular city with nothing around it gets an automatic 70 amos extra, so I wouldn't have known that. So therefore, it has to tell me, but okay, by one city you get 70, by two cities you get 140. That's what we're learning over here. I wouldn't have known that. Tzricha, it's necessary. Okay, so we have two ways of reading the Mishnah. We have Rav Huna's way, that, in the words of the sages, that the Chachamim say that you get a karfif per city when you're joining two cities together. And Rav Meir would agree with that, of course. But the Chachamim say that you only get between two cities, but you do get two. And Chia Barav says the Chachamim say that you only get one karfif between two cities, and you never get anything more than that. According to the Chachamim. Rav Meir says that every city has its own karfif, so therefore between two cities you'll get two. There's no machlekes. There's no machlekes in Rav Meir. Every city has a karfif. That's easy. The question is, in the Chachamim, do you get between two cities when it applies? Do you get one karfif or two per city? One per city.
If you get one karfif, which city gets it?
Oh.
Half each?
No, what it would mean is like this.
From one city. Yeah.
Can I make the two cities, the twin cities, into one city? So when I say I give it a karfif, it's not that I measure 2,000 amos after 70 amos. I'm measuring the 2,000 amos after the next city. I can only do that if the distance between one city and the other is within 70 amos.
Yeah.
And according to Rav Huna, I can do that if the distance between the two cities is 140 amos. Then I'll measure from the other city. Is there a bridge between St. Paul and Minneapolis? What's the name of it? That's what we're discussing. We're discussing how big the distance of that bridge. So Machlekes Rav Huna and Chia Barav. If that bridge could be 70 or 140 to make it into one city, to measure the tchum. So St. Paul can walk from the edge of Minneapolis 2,000 amos. And the opposite. Minneapolis can walk to the edge of St. Paul 2,000 amos, depending on the size of that bridge. Okay, Tanan. Start in the Mishnah. You have three cities. villages, kfar. Im yesh bein shnayim achitzon mea v'arbam v'achazama shlish isem tzayir shlashton liyasech. You have three cities. If there is between the cities 140 amas, between the outer cities, so then the middle city makes them all into one. It's very interesting expressions over here, but I mean it's just saying it in a way that could be read in so many different ways. The Gemara starts off saying like this: Taima de ikam tzai. What's the reason why you have 140 amas? Because I only allow 70 amas between cities. So when I have three cities and I have 140 amas between the two outer ones, and the middle city allows all three cities to become one. That means that there's 70 amas for each. Let's say I take away the middle city. Haleka emtzai. If you remove the middle city, then you would have 70 amas outside of each city, which is a total of 140 amas. Then it doesn't work. Why does this work? Because the emtzai makes it that there's 70 amas between cities. It's a raya to Chia Barav, that I can only have 70 amas between two cities. Now we have three cities, so we have 70 amas on each side of the center city. If I remove the middle city, then I would have 140 amas between the two cities, and it doesn't work. It's Yufta de Rav Huna. It's Kashan Rav Huna. Yeah.
Just want to say I found three cities, famous three cities in Malta. So that's what that map is. Mamish, there are three cities. I don't know exactly.
Do they call it like Tri-City or something?
It's called the three cities.
Uh-huh. Three cities. Interesting. Okay. So, Amalach Rav Huna needs to respond to this. Yitzmar Allah, Amar Rabba, Amar Abidi, Amar Mchanina, Leimish Shaloshin Mamish. We said that it's the three cities. If you look at Dr. Stein's picture, it's not three cities in a row. It's three cities like a segel, like 1, 2, and 3, like a tripod, sort of. So, Elaroyan Kosi Ila Matalim Tzay Beinaim Yumashloshim Vein Bein Zelzel Kuf Memal. Okay, this is a bit of a tough way of reading the Mishnah, and if I show you a picture, it'll save us time. So, this is the way we understood the Mishnah at the beginning. There's a chitzin, there's an emtzai, and there's a chitzin. Three cities in a row. Between the two cities is 141 amas altogether, 70 amas each. Problem is, if I remove the middle city, then it's not going to work. Because why? Because it would be 140 amas, 2 karfet for each. It's a problem. It's a kasha on Rav Huna, that it doesn't work. Rav Huna says that's not the story. The story is that the middle city isn't even there. The middle city is removed from the center. I have 2 outer cities. And there's 141 amas on each side in this phantom city. We imagine that if I would put this city in, now there's a lot of specifications over here. First, we're going to need to learn how far removed the city could be from here. But that we'll see in the following Gemara. And he's going to have a comment here. Okay. We're also going to learn that it needs to be able to fit in. It can't just be a large city. That we'll learn in the Gemara after that. So, okay, we have a whole new story here. We're talking about here is I can get 141 amas on this side, 141 amas on this side, and without even a city being there, but I put the city there to make it work. And this is Rav Huna's pshat, that if you have two cities, you get 141 amos between each one. Here I have three cities, so I get 141 amos between all of them. It's pretty interesting. Okay, let's go back to read the Gemara, and then we'll see it inside. It says like this. Loy mishalosh mamish. It doesn't mean three in a row. Rather we view it. If we would place the third city between them, and then it would be three in a row. And there would only be 141 between all three, between each of the two in the three. It means there'd be 141 on one side, 141 on the other side. There won't be more than that. Then all three become one, three cities. Now, what is the significance of that? That in those three cities, I can walk from city A 2,000 amas from the edge of city C. I don't start counting from the edge of my own city. I start counting from the edge of the third city, which is great. Get extra area to walk on Shabbos. Amalei Rava la Abaye. Rava says to Abaye, "Kam ben chitzon lemtzei." Very obvious question. What's the distance between the middle city and the outer cities that you can do this? I mean, it's all imaginary. I'm imagining that city goes in the center. So how far out can I do this that I could imagine it? Amalei al payamam, 2,000 amas. Let me go back to the picture just to clarify one point. He makes an interesting point here. What we just learned is that there's 2,000 amas between the outer cities. Those are two outer cities in the middle city. And if this city is within 2,000 amas, then I can join this city. Imagine that it's in the center, and then it increases the tchum. Now he makes a point on the side from the Chazon Ish that the 2,000 amas is measured, I think, from here to there, not along the sides, which is longer. I have actually more space. Where do I measure it from? See what's going on over here? If I measure it on the angle, 2,000 amas, I won't have as much space. It says from the Chazon Ish that I make the imaginary line across, and then I measure this to there. It gives me a little more space, which is very interesting. There's like a vagueness to it. And then, of course, anything in the Gemara that's vague is probably a machlokes. So that's how it works. Okay.
I found another three more cities in Sydney. I just want you to know it's not so unusual. And they're also called the metropolis of three cities.
And do they have a tripod line shape? Or is it? I see it now.
Yeah, it depends. Actually, the one on the yellow goes further down. So there is a tripod to it, but the centers are a little bit more linear. Just saying, this isn't just ancient biblical times. This is now.
That's right. The Gemara has a question. Well, it's probably Rava asked Abaya how much space is in between the outer city and that center, that middle city. So Abaya responds, 2,000 amas. So Rava tells to Abaya, this is throwing us back into a sugi that we had 2 days ago, I think, where if you have a city in the shape of a bow, like a bow and arrow, in the shape of a U. So we had a discussion about where that city measures yeah, if you walk from the edges of the city, the tips of the U, so then you get 2,000 amas. But where does the people that live in the center of that city measure from? They said that you make a string along the bow, an imaginary string, and they measure from that string 2,000 amas. They have extra space to walk, one second. How far could the center of the U, from the bow be? So it says, you said, that center to this imaginary string on this bow could be even more than 2,000 amas. What are you telling me that the middle city, it's very similar. Two outer cities and a middle city is just like a bow, a U shape. And over there you said that the center of it could be further from the string, further than 2,000 amas. And now you're saying that it can only be 2,000 amas. It's like that Chazanish, it fits nicely. As I was measuring directly from the center to the bow, to the string, the center of the bow to the string. Okay, so he responds, Hachihashta. There, it could be more than 2,000 amas because all along the sides there were houses. Where if I wanted to get to any spot over there, I could walk along the houses and then walk to the center. So I had a way of walking all along the bow. Over here, if you remove it more than 2,000 amas, you can't get to that spot anyway. So there's a problem. Over there were houses all along. Okay, now he has another question. How far apart could they be? He says, what's the question? He said clearly, there's 141 amas on each side, and then you put a city in the middle, imaginary city in the middle, and that's going to work. It says, could it be even 4,000 amas? Remember what we said with the city that was shaped like a U? Said that if from one tip of the U, of a bow, right, to the end, to the other edge, was more than 4,000 amas, then we couldn't do this. Then you didn't make an imaginary line, a string on the bow, to allow the people in the center of the bow to walk 2,000 amas from that imaginary string. You didn't do that if it was too far apart, if it was more than 4,000 amas. Now you're telling me that no matter what size it is, I can put an imaginary city in the center and it's going to work. Because we're thinking that it's working the same way, that we're like straightening out the bow and we're putting the cities up. And we're thinking that's how this is working. So, it could even be more than 4,000 amas. Said by the city that was shaped like a bow, it doesn't work. There's different pshatim how this is working. Pshatim and Taisvus. Pshat that's nice. I mean, they're all nice. Pshat that sounds interesting is that over there I can't fit the bow. I can't push the bow in between the two edges because it's obviously more houses, more long. I can't turn a curve into a straight line and fit it in properly. So therefore, I'm not doing an imaginary displacement, replacing a line over there with these houses. Over there, I'm doing it different. I can only have 4,000 amas between the two edges. Over here, I'm taking a city and I'm replacing it and I'm putting it in the center. Over there, I can have even more than 4,000 amas. Let's just look at a picture for clarity, and then we'll move. Okay, we spoke about the bow, if the city that's a bow, if it's more than 2,000 amos on each, from each, which means more than 4,000 amos, that was a problem. Over here, you're saying it's not a problem. Okay. He's giving a few pshatim over here from Taisvis. But he is showing you that if you would try to straighten it out, it's going to be too long. It won't fit in. That's one of the pshatim in Taisvis, how this works. Amalei Rav Safra the Rava. Safra says to Rava, Hare b'nei Akistafain, the Mashchin Latchuma Mehaigisa the Ardashir. These are cities in Babylonia, not in Malta or Sydney. But I guess the same would apply if it works out. Akistafain I saw in the Steinsaltz comments that is the city, the biblical city of Kalmeh. Mentioned, I think, somewhere in Bereshis. By Nimrod, I think it says Kalmeh. And that they measure their tchum from the other edge of the city of Ardashir, which is, I think it's still around. He says it's Ve Ardashir. It's named after one of the kings. They measure from the other edge of Akistafan. Each one measures, this is a twin city, measure from the other side of the problem is, 1 second. If you take into account, there's the river that goes in between them and they're still measuring from the other edge. They would go over the river by boat in Shabbos. Somehow it was allowed. They went over the river. You weren't supposed to go on a boat. Maybe if it's in the Tchum, it's not a problem. You weren't supposed to go on the boat into the seas to leave the Tchum. So they would travel. They would walk from the edge of the other city across the Tigris River. They would cross the Tigris River, and maybe there was a bridge. Maybe the bridge would have combined it anyway. Oh, if there was a house by the bridge, that would have come out. So whatever the case is, the problem is that it's more than 141 amas. So Nafak, Rava went out. Showed him, you look into the water, you see ruins of an old city. We said that if the ruins were a certain size, that could still be counted as part of the city. So that was able to combine them. That was within 141 amas. So that was like the middle city that combined them. Okay, let's go further. Any questions?
Didn't we learn that these extensions require a building, which is an abode, which would have bread in it? Didn't we learn that as a principle? For example, when we learned about the extensions of a city, all these buildings that you could add on to extend the boundaries, each 70 amas away.
Right.
You could run a chain of these little buildings. I thought at the time, we also were learning that it had to be a place where people could live to the extent of keeping bread there.
Now, I don't know if it said
Am I mixing
about
apples
the
and
bread.
oranges?
About the bread, those were two separate things. But we did have a Mishnah that said that if there was a city, we spoke about gedudiyos that are 10 tefachim high, which are ruins. He said, what are ruins? If it has 3 walls. So what if it had 2 walls and the roof? Remember we had that discussion. That was it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be tough to put bread in there, in this one, in the Ziploc. Okay. We had this Mishnah before. How do you measure a city, use a rope of 50 amas. Not more, not less. Not less, not more. That's what in other words, the rope is a 50 amma rope. You would use now the surveyors have these equipment. They don't use a string. But they used to, and they probably still do in small areas, they use a tape measure. So how big is it? What type of tape measure do you use? You use a 50 amma one. And then you have to measure 2,000 amas. So where do you hold the tape measure? You hold it up to the heart. The significance of that is that if you would hold, one would hold it higher, one would hold it lower, then you'd be losing space because of the incline. So they're telling you where to hold it. You came to a valley, you came to a fence. Mavliya, you swallow it up. Which means like this, that if I could get over the valley with my 50 amas, it was like the Grand Canyon or something. To get down would be 2,000 amas down or more. And then to get back up it would be way out of the tchum. So I can just skip it. I just go straight over. And I have someone at the other edge with 50 amma away over the gap. And that's all considered within the tchum. So, and then you continue measuring. And you come back. Okay, let me tell you what the Gemara is going to do here. Rashi introduces it already, so it's probably worthwhile. Not every time can you get over the, let's see if there's a picture, and then make it easier on us. That's the ruins of the Tigris River. Okay. Here it shows you how to measure. Here it says that you go over the valley. Okay. Now what it's saying is that, let's say I can't get over this with 50 amas, with the 50 amma string. This is a big valley. And this is 1,000 amas away, right? You put 800 amas to there, 200 amas here, and this is 1,000 amas apart. So how do I get over it? So he says, well, you can walk down to the edge and you get over it over here with a 50 amas string, and then you continue measuring, and then you go back here and you get around it. So he says, that's what it means. When it says chayzer lemidase, means that he comes back to his original place and does the rest of his measuring from there. Okay. Now it says bilvad, we're on top of Nanches, it says bilvad sheyetzi chutz l'tchum, but you can't go out of the tchum. Now there's two pshatim here, what it's going out of. You can't go out of the tchum. One pshat is that, let's say the tchum ends in the center. So if I have to walk down, it's going to be further. So I walk over here, and the tchum ends right in this spot, right by that dalet. So it says, don't put a marking over there and then work your way back, because people might think that that's the edge of the tchum. That's one pshat. Rashi's other pshat is, I can't walk out of the tchum to get that measurement at the edge of the valley, the 50. In other words, until I get out of the tchum, it's still too wide. So I can't do that measurement out of the tchum. People may think that this is part of the tchum, even though I'm just trying to get to here, right? I'm just trying to get to here, and I'm just using that to get over a valley, to get over the gap. But if this narrowness of the gap, of the canyon, is too far out of the tchum, I can't do that. That's too pshat. If you can't get over it, or you can't absorb it, then what do you do? Makadrim has different translations. You pierce it, you pierce the mountains. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to make it like the rice fields, as we can see. That you measure it in smaller ways so that you don't have to take the incline into account. Okay. Minani Mili, where do we know this? It says, Yehuda Marav Tamakra, Eirech Chatzer Meya Ba'ama Brech Chamishim B'Chamishim. How do you know that you use 50 amma string? Well, it's talking about the Mishkan. It says that the courtyard is 50 and 50. So 50 and 50 means that you're measuring with the 50 amma string. No, that tells me the area that I'm allowed to that I could surround on Shabbos, that it's 50 by 50, not 50 by 50, that it's 50 plus 50. And I surround, and that's the area that I surround, which makes it into 70 point something by 70 point something amos. So it says, Im kain lemakra chamishim chamishim, 50-50. My chamishim b'chamishim, what's that extra that I use a string? That's what it's going to tell me. 50 with 50. It means shamat minitarti. It's also telling me that I use a string of 50 amos. It says you don't use a smaller string or a larger string. If you use a smaller string than 50 amos, it'll be easy for you to stretch. We don't want it to stretch. You started off with a string that's a certain size. When they're pulling it, they could stretch it. It's going to end up extending the area. It can't be longer than 50 because it will sag. It's longer than 50. You'll end up losing space. So 50 amos is the measurement that won't stretch and it won't sag. Amar Abasi. Abasi says in Meidan Bechevel Shel Af Sekima. You can only use Af Sekima. My Af Sekima. What is Af Sekima? This is the material that the rope is made from. Amar Ababa Nagila. This is Nargila. Okay. My Nargila, so what is Nargila? Amar Rabbi Yaakov Dikla Dechad Nivra. Okay, all of this is, it's a palm tree of one fiber that grows in it. All of this is referring to a coconut, according to the Steinsaltz. I didn't see what the article says. Talking about a coconut. What would they use? The fibers surrounding the shell of the coconut. So the fibers surrounding the brown, the hard shell. Those soft fibers that protect it when it falls. It's supposed to. So those are stringy. And you can turn that into a rope. So Tanya, okay, Ikadamri Maya Sakima, Rababa Managilar, Rabbi Yaakov Medikla L'Chadni. A different version of the same conversation. What's the difference between them? Rababa says it's Maya Sakima, Amar Rababa Menagila, Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yaakov Amar Dikla. Difference is where the Amar is. I don't know what the difference is. Tanya, we're starting in the Brisa. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Chananya. Shua ben Chananya, going back. Tana, student of Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai. It says, really, the best thing to use to measure would be iron chains. What can I do? The prophet says that in his hand was a string to measure. We don't use iron chains based on that pasuk. It says 1 second. The different prophet. Yechezkel says he has a measuring stick. What are you telling me? Measuring string? It's a stick. It says ahulatari. That was to measure the size of a gate. Those are very small. You can use a stick. And you're measuring other area, so then you need a string. Tanur Reb Yosef, Shleisha Chavalamim. Reb Yosef says that there's 3 strings. Shel Megeg, it's a type of rush, a type of reed. Shel Netzer is other reeds. Shel Pishtan, and flax, linen. Shel Megeg, what did they use this type of string for? Lepara, for the paraduma. The Tnan, Kaftua Bechevel HaMegeg, V'Nosnol Gav Marachta. They would tie it and they would bring it up to the place where they were going to burn it after they shechted it. So it was tied with this type of string, which I guess doesn't become tamei. That was the significance. Shel Netzarim, this, we said Netzer was another type of string. That was the Saita. We said that the Saita woman, the suspected adulterous woman, they would tear her clothing. And the clothing could fall down. They didn't want it to fall down. They would tear the clothing and then they would tie it up above her chest. And they would use a rope, an Egyptian rope. The Tanan, started in the Mishnah, maybe and they would tie it above her breast so that the clothing wouldn't fall. Now, it's another type of rope. Why Mitzri over there? It says it wasn't considered honorable, or she acted like an Egyptian woman. They were immodest and immoral. Shel Pishtan, the Medida, flax, that's used for measuring. That comes into our Masechta. If he's measuring and he reaches, okay, we explained this already, how this works. He reaches a valley, so he can go to the edge of the valley and then go back. And the fact that it says that he goes back to his measurement, that would mean that if he's not able to absorb it just over the canyon, right here, that means that he can go walk to a different area. And over there, he absorbs it. He can go over the canyon. But Seifa Keneged Midasi, and then he looks to where his measurement was. And he goes back over there. The way we're learning this Mishnah, that we're being medayek from the words B'chayzel Midasi, is actually taught to us in a brisa. If someone is measuring and the measurement reaches a valley, if you can absorb it, in other words, if you can go over the canyon, the gap, with a 50 amma, then that's what you do. And even though it's a long trek down, but it doesn't matter. But if not, if not, you can walk to the side and you go over the canyon over there where it's smaller. If it's impossible, because his city is surrounded by a valley. The valley is curved around his city. So you can't walk to the edge and then get over. So, maktir va'ila, maktir v'yored. You pierce it. Now, what that meant, pierce, meant that was what you do to a mountain. Over here, it means that you take a small string, and this one holds it up to his chest, this one holds it to his feet. Feet on the top and the chest on the bottom. That way, every string is always in a straight line. And basically, it would be, if you would flatten it out, it would be a perfect measurement. And so if you can't get over it or down it, then you have to do it like this. At least you're not taking the incline into account. It's as if you went through it. It's as if you went. So, if you reach a wall, if you reach a wall, you don't have to make a hole in the wall. You just do an estimation. Well, the Gemara is a little concerned by this. What are you saying? You can do an estimation. We never said estimating. We said that you have to go over it If to go to the side, what are you saying? You do an estimation. So it's a difference. When do you have to measure it exactly? When that area is being used. Someone's going to walk on it. There's an incline, but you're able to get to walk on that incline. But a wall, no one is going over the wall. So when that area is not being used, so then I can just estimate its width. That's enough. It's only when it's being used that I need it to have an exact amount. Let's leave it right here.